Hello again, everybody. So, the next entry in the book reviews series is going to be How to Render by Scott Robertson. And this is a brilliant resource if you want to try to learn how to render uh, in a lifelike way. It also gives you a lot of constructive, constructive diagrams for rendering. Well, it just equips you with the tools to render from imagination too, which is why this is such a useful book. It takes a much more, I would say, scientific approach to rendering. I think a lot of you are familiar with his other book, How to Draw, and I think maybe there's a lot of people who are less familiar with this one. So let's dive right in. As always, not going to show you the full book, but we will have a look at some of the pages. So immediately, like in this page, he's just giving you a bit of an idea of the difference between direct light sources, which have cast very hard shadows, as opposed to soft light sources, which have very soft shadows and more of an atmosphere to them, I suppose. So immediately he's already kind of throwing you in and showing you the differences between different types of shadows, different kinds of lights. Light decay, as he calls it, and it's, this is like for more darker interior environments, how the light is here and then it just fades into darkness. That's what he refers to as light decay. He's got occlusion, which is like the very dark spots of shadows, so it's like you'll have a shadow and then you'll have a very dark spot because there's two planes that are meeting and they're creating a very dark, just like a patch of darkness in between the planes. So it's a very, immediately in these early pages, you're getting a very in-depth overlook at the mechanics of light and shadow and how it actually works. And there's a huge amount of information in this. You wouldn't be able to possibly retain all of it, but it does give you generally a good idea of what to expect. And I think it's just a very good overview on the mechanics of light and shadow because it equips you with the tools necessary, or it equips you with the understanding that you need in order to be able to draw a lot of this stuff even from your head. So we're going to skip quite a lot of the pages here and we're just going to go straight to some of these exercises that he does with casting shadows. So you can see like there's a lot of geometric construction for casting shadows, so that's another thing this book teaches you. This book is brilliant. If you want to learn how to render and get good at casting shadows, get good at rendering and all of that nice stuff, this is a brilliant resource because he's pretty much teaching you everything, and he gives you different examples of casting shadows on different objects. It really is brilliant. Skip ahead again. Still looking at the casting shadows chapter, but this time we've got a bit more of an atmosphere in these images. You can see again the geometric construction that he's used to cast the shadows accurately, and then he's got the rendered image on this side. It's rendered beautifully, very convincing, and these are all done on imaginary objects. So that's the best thing about this book, is that he's teaching you how to do it from your head. And that's very convincing. Like that's a very convincing form that's just been rendered from some guy's imagination. Like it's good, but this is why I love this book, because this is what taught me how to render from my head. I like to flick through the pages of this book from time to time because it's always a good resource to come back to. I always learn something new when I come back to it. So let's skip ahead again. What else have we got? because there's a lot. This is a massive book. It's like hundreds of pages. You can skip to this one here. So, rendering organic forms. That's really nice. I love how in-depth this book goes in with the rendering, you know? Like, you start with, like, your cubes and your basic shapes, your cones, rectangular prisms, and then you go into more organic forms with, like, soft lights. And you can see how he's putting in, like, some of the occlusion shapes in there, like some of those darker shadows, some of these soft forms here. Cut lines. Okay, so he's got some like photographic references for you to study from too, which is really nice. Got some landscapes, textures, gradients, things like that. Love the atmosphere in that photo there. So you can see how this is a photograph, but it's very simplistic. Like all the values, you know, you got like this misty, foggy atmosphere in the background, and it's basically pretty much one tone. But that's a photograph. That's not a painting. That's a photo. So it's a very good example of how you can simplify your tones and still get a much, a very realistic finish. I mean, that's a photograph, so it's not going to get more realistic than that, really, is it? And yet the tones are so simplified in that. We've got some rendering for conceptual things, character designs, creature designs. It's very cool. So he's really kind of throwing you in the deep end, you know? It's like he's teaching you how to render things from your imagination. Got these more mechanical forms going on. Yeah, there's some real beautiful sketches in this. We've got a rendering tutorial for like an imaginary dinosaur. Velociraptor, it looks like. This is the final stage, I think. Bit of a cool outline, you know, gave it a bit more of a comical finish, but it's very effective. But, you know, all of those forms, those anatomical forms are rendered very convincingly. Very convincingly. So that's a nice little tutorial there. You can learn a lot. You can seriously learn a lot. There is, you know, if you keep going through the pages, gives you some things from some photo references, things like that. Like, there's just a wealth of material. Okay, so here's what I was looking for. It's got a whole chapter on reflective surfaces. So it just gets more and more complicated as you go through, right? Like, this really is the book on rendering. It's not just looking at matte surfaces. Like, this whole first half of the book will keep you occupied for a very, very, very long time. But he's also taking you into reflective surfaces too. So it's a wonderful resource. Like, if you've got any questions about reflections or shadows, it's going to be in this book. It's just a whole encyclopedia of this thing. That looks like a really nice digital painting. Some examples of the reflective surfaces there. I think a bit earlier on. Yeah, he's got some of these exercises of like reflective balls, basically, and some of them have color on them. Some of them are black, white, and he's kind of teaching you how to organize the lights and the shadows on reflective surfaces. Bit of a complicated diagram. I never fully worked it out, to be honest. I've kind of got my own method for reflective surfaces, which isn't perfect, but it gets the job done. But, you know, if you really wanted to understand it in depth, you could really study this part of the chapter and really study it that way. I kind of approach reflective surfaces in a different way, but this is effective too. I just try to keep it as simple as possible, honestly. What else we got? Oh, this is the chapter on the so-called Fresnel effect, I think it's called. Yeah, this is it. So if you think about like looking at a lake or a pond or something, you'll notice that the reflections are a lot more shiny further away, and then it's less reflective the closer it is to the viewer, which is done with this photograph here, you can see like the beach. You can see the reflections of the people on the sand, and then there's no reflection here. Same here, you know, just a lot darker, less reflective, and then it's a lot brighter here, and then the reflections are really popping there. Same with on cars as well. You get that effect on cars. So it's like you get the real value and the real color the closer the surface is to the viewer, and then as it turns away, it's more reflective, and the true color and the true value is disappearing. So reflective surfaces are very complicated, but this book teaches you everything about them, basically. So if you have any questions about reflective surfaces, this is going to be the book that you go to, because there's a whole chapter on this thing. And we'll skip ahead again. Got some bit of car modeling. Looks like a bit of 3D work. I think he's using 3ds Max or something. I actually don't know what software he's using, but it'd be something like that. So yeah, he's teaching you how to use a bit of software, basically. This is still, we're still in reflections. I've just skipped ahead a bunch of pages and we're still in the reflections. So this is the sky's reflection. Yeah, it makes sense that, you know, like obviously we're looking at a red car here, but the reflection is very blue because it's reflecting the sky. So reflections tend to overpower the color and the value of the surface of the object. That's kind of what it's teaching you. So it's really teaching you the in-depth mechanics of light and reflection and how it moves and bounces off of surfaces. And he's using real photographic reference to demonstrate that. Yeah, look, there's a diagram of like the space of the atmosphere and the Earth. Like, I don't know. I guess if you want to go that in depth with it, it's just crazy how far you can go with it. You know. Wow, look at that. So there is okay, and then we've got a chapter on rendering different materials, different textures, things like that. So you know, you can really get lost in this book, to be honest. You know, I don't know if you would. To be honest, I'll admit to you, I've not actually read the full thing. I've owned this book for a couple of years now, and I jump to the early chapters a lot for like the rendering of the matte surfaces. Because even that chapter, just on its own, takes you a long time to wrap your head around. But stuff like this, I sometimes I have a flick through, but I haven't really had a chance to read the full chapters because, quite frankly, you're never gonna retain all of that information. You're really kind of just using it as an encyclopedia. You know, you're just kind of flicking to the page that you need at the time. And I think it's a great book for that, you know. You're not going to retain all the information, but you can certainly use it as a good reference. Like things like this, like depth of field, I'm never going to use it, not in the artwork that I do, but it's cool that it's there. Looks like he's got a bit of a cyborg man, and he's rendering that. Looks like he's taking you through the rendering process of that, which is very cool. And we've got some nice, looks like digital paintings here. Wow. And then we've got some book references, some book referrals, I guess. Beautiful book. So anyway, that was just a very brief glimpse. I don't want this book review to go on as long as the others that I did earlier because they were like half an hour long. This is just going to be a very quick overview. But all I will say is my overall review of this is if you are struggling to render believable images, especially from imagination, this is the book that you want. How to Render by Scott Robertson and Thomas Bertling. Because they are approaching it from a very scientific angle. And when you want to draw something from your head, you have to actually understand the science behind it. That's what the fundamentals of drawing are all about. That's why we learn perspective, and that's why we learn how to render like this. And that's the thing, you don't have to render as detailed as that. You don't have to try to compete with 3D software. Typically, when we render traditionally, we're always trying to simplify the image to get it to be more effective. But it is good to know some of these more advanced concepts so that, when the time calls for it, you can just refer to the page that you need, and just study it as you need to. It's good to have a bit of a basic understanding of some of these things so that, when you go into your personal projects, you'll be more well equipped to draw the things that you really want to draw. So highly recommend that one. I think a lot of people do own How to Draw, because How to Draw is a very popular book. Not sure how many people own this one, but if you don't, pick it up, because this really helped me out, especially with the shadow casting and the rendering and things like that. I kind of use slightly different methods for casting shadows, though. Like I used to have a teacher who, he came from one of the Russian academies, and he taught me some very effective ways of casting shadows. But that being said, though, this has still been an excellent resource for me. So yeah, all I can say is if you find it, pick it up. It's going to be a brilliant addition to your collection, and it's going to help you out quite a lot, I think. So anyway, I hope you enjoyed that video. Hope that gave you a little bit of an insight into what to expect from that one. There's a wealth of information in that one. Absolute gold. So definitely get onto that. Don't sleep on that one. And I'll try and record a few more book reviews, because I've got a bit of a collection. I should probably do a book review of How to Draw, because that's the prequel to this one, and that would be good to do. Yeah, if you enjoyed the video, like, comment, subscribe, all that crap. Or don't, no one's forcing you to do that. And I'll be back soon with another video, hopefully. So catch you guys later. Enjoy.